It's going to be exciting. Arjun Erigaisi, he starts out with the white pieces. He wants to win this game. Here we go.
Yep, 1d4, a queen's pawn opening. This could lead to a variety of different variations. What will Magnus choose? Okay, not what we expect maybe from the world champion. I haven't seen this one before from him too often. He plays the perk, the modern. Okay, it is the perk, and this could transpose. Okay, he doesn't go into the Philidor defense. He's just letting white occupy the center with his pawns.
Yeah, and Erigaisi developing the dark square bishop. He's getting ready to line up the queen and bishop and perhaps initiate an attack. And there it comes. King is getting ready to run to the long side, to the queen side.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we will see some fiery stuff today.
Oh.
Yeah, and Magnus, I think he's learned some lessons from his game against Pragnananda in the prelims of this tournament. Prag, in a very similar opening, just went straight for Magnus, just attacked him and had a winning position after about 7 moves. So Magnus this time has survived the first few turns at least. The evaluation bar still really liking white. That's because white has a space advantage in the centre and a development advantage now he's castled. But black is super flexible at the moment. Simon, who do you prefer in these types of openings?
Well, I mean, I play this as white and black sometimes, and it's, I think, generally quite well known that the perk is very, very risky. And when I say risky, probably a bit dubious at top level. There's a reason why none of the top grandmasters play it on a regular basis. It's still a great opening because it's a really fun, exciting opening, and you're guaranteed a very adventurous and interesting game. And we see this move now, b5 coming on the queen side. And black is already has a threat. He's threatening to kick the knight away and win a pawn in the centre. So white guards that pawn in the centre. But one thing for sure, you know, you get some of the most interesting positions from this opening. So the right strategy, I think, from Arjun. And I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that Magnus has played so aggressively, you know, because he showed that he can outplay in normal positions. And this is really, really, you know, you can't play more aggressively as black than this opening, can you, really? Yeah. It's super aggressive.
Yeah, it's provocative as well. And I just had a flashback for a second, a bit of deja vu. I was thinking, I've seen something similar to this before. And actually, in the prelims of this tournament, OK, Magnus smiling there, but the prelims of this tournament, in round 1, Erigaisi had white, Magnus had black, and Magnus played the modern defence, which is basically kind of a sister variation to this opening, and Magnus won as black. So I think he's just basing...
He crushed him.
He crushed him.
He crushed
Absolutely
him.
crushed
But
him, yeah.
Yeah, that game was partly due to the fact that Erigaisi reacted too aggressively. So he's not going for the same kind of approach here. Here he's biding his time, he's solidifying the centre, and now is the moment to start pushing those pawns or developing a light square bishop.
Yeah, so white has various options depending on Erigaisi's move. Sorry, not depending on his move, his mood. And you mentioned a few options there, Jovanka. So.
Yeah, so I'm just checking database, and I can see that the pawn push g4 is the main move,
This one.
closely followed by the light square bishop developing to the d3 square.
Yep, this makes a lot of sense, kicking back black's well-placed knight, if given the opportunity, and the other move is to bring the white bishop out. And, OK, he doesn't choose either of those options. He pushes Harry the h-pawn. This one's slightly surprising to me. It looks like this is kind of a nice setup for white. If the knight gets kicked back, at least you can retreat. But the reason I'm surprised by Erigaisi's move is because now, exactly after what Magnus has played, he can't really use the central square for his knight where he wants to place it, because black's knight would jump in with a nasty fork. So instead, he's dropped back, and it's a pawn race.
I think this has gone, I mean, again, from having a bit of experience in these openings, I think this has gone quite nicely for Magnus. I mean, I'm even thinking Arjun may have castled a little bit too soon. I know this is the main idea, but you are putting your king straight away into a zone where you can be attacked. And Magnus is not messing about. I love seeing Magnus attack because you don't often see it. And I love seeing it when he plays super aggressive, because he can play brilliantly super aggressive. Most people just think he's like, oh, well, you know, he's just this endgame brilliant. But he can play every part of the game brilliantly. And, well, this is certainly getting very exciting, isn't it, already, this position. But black's made a lot of progress on that queen side.
Yeah, it feels like black is ahead in the race. White still needs a few moves to prepare pushing his pawn forward. Maybe he needs to push this pawn forward as well. And it looks like black isn't really developed. The king's still in the centre, the bishop there, but actually black is really flexible. Black's king, like you said, it's not committed, so it could sit in the centre, it could castle kingside, queenside later. Black's bishop kind of stays on its start square because actually, if it ever moves, it might just get traded off anyway by white's bishop, so he's just kind of saving time, Magnus. And white's knight now coming out via the edge of the board. One thing I've seen Magnus do before in similar positions is actually just take this knight off the board with his bishop, just because black is slightly cramped, and this knight might jump forward into his...
This is like one of the masters of this line, Tiger Hillett Person, recommends that move, David, quite a lot, using the bishop to get rid of that knight. And it has quite a lot of similarities to some Najdorf lines, even this opening with the black knight and the king side coming across the other way. But certainly going to be very exciting. I would just like to say a quick hello in the chat to someone who was down the Good Night yesterday, and he told me his name was Ra, like a tiger.
Ooh.
And or can I just call him Mr. Fireball Man? But I did spot him in the chat earlier. So yeah, he's certainly a character, and a good character.
Where was he from? From Oslo? Or?
He was from Oslo, yeah.
Okay.
But we had a mutual friend that he knew, John Naylor, from the old times. So yeah.
Because I noticed yesterday there were a lot of. Oh wait, what just happened?
Magnus played a slightly odd move, I've got to say. He's committing his pawns in the centre. He's just encouraging Arjun to push forward even further and go on the attack. And Valuation Bar thinks it's good for white. It does look odd to allow this, we've got to say.
Yeah, I have to say, if I were Arjun here and I faced in this move, then I would say, you want me to push forward? That will be my pleasure. I am going to attack that knight. And yeah, Arjun makes that move, and Magnus is forced to put his knight on the side of the board.
Yeah, black's knight is not very well placed here, but it does remind me of a variation they call the North Sea defence, but also the Norwegian rat.
Ah.
So in that opening, it's very provocative. Black asks white to push forward as far as possible, then he places his knight on the side of the board, and the main idea is just to confuse the opponent, right, Simon?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, very interesting decision there. It's not really like the perk to play that move in the centre, which Magnus went for, and he's really dicing it up today, isn't he? He's taking some very unconventional sort of view of the game, and he's playing some quite wild moves. And I mean, that black knight at the moment, it was threatening to come in, but Arjun has stopped that knight's jump. And yeah, I'm not that convinced about Magnus's plan, because the knight on the rim, yeah, as you're showing, David, it's just a target for black's pawns, white's pawns. White's pawns would love to come forwards, and black, I guess, wants to use his knight on the other side of the board to jump in, but not totally convinced this is the right way to play for black, for Magnus.
It's very risky, right?
Very risky.
Not really what you want to be doing when a draw is sufficient. And, well, this is Magnus's deep point. You see a trade of the bishop for the knight, and then he actually retreats his knight on the G7 square, which is usually where a bishop finds itself, but no. And as David highlighted, knight can blockade the pawn or move to the F5 square.
Well, I suppose, David, if he can block it up on the king side, then he's going to be black's going to be doing quite well if he can use his H pawn and the other pawn.
Yeah.
This is what he'd love to do, and this is his strategy.
Yeah, if he's given enough time, as you say, Simon, if he can put all these pawns on light squares, he can compensate for the fact he's traded off his light squared bishop, and yeah, black is rock solid here, the knight coming forward. But this requires white to be kind of agreeable, and can white take advantage before, as you mentioned, black blocks it with these two pawn moves? Maybe there's a way. I mean, Prague, he played a similar idea to pushing his pawn forward and sacrificing some material when he played Magnus in the prelims. Different position, but similar ideas. I would be very tempted to look at pushing this pawn forward. The black knight, I guess, would take this pawn, and Prague, in that position, sacrificed a rook for knight. It looks like it shouldn't work here, but I mean, there are ideas such as pushing this pawn forward, or...
I love that move, David, that you've pointed out there.
Or
really
pushing
nice.
this pawn forward simply and then pushing forward again, and it feels like you're gaining so much time. Semi-open file. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, just a crazy position.
Absolutely love that idea, because if you push the Gary pawn here, the G pawn, black can still close it down by the looks of it, I think, with a very typical response, moving Harry. And this is the kind of thing black wants to keep closed there. So I love your idea of offering a pawn. Pawns don't matter so much when you've got such sharp tactical positions. When the kings are on opposite sides of the board, you don't worry about pawns because it's very unlikely you're going to get to the ending. Checkmate is key. So I think this is his chance, right? Yeah. I think he's got to now play aggressively with confidence and push that H-pawn, and that will show that he's here to play.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I mean, you have to do something before Magnus. OK, he brings his bishop out. I was going to say before Magnus gets his type of position where he just slowly turns it into a positional strategic battle. And this one feels a bit odd. What's the bishop doing there? If the knight moves, for example, then you're just trading off a bishop that hasn't actually moved at all. So white has spent 2-3 moves with his bishop just to trade off. I'm not sure Magnus will even bother with moving his knight right now. This knight is protected. It just looks a bit odd to me. And yeah, what is this bishop doing here? I guess the main idea for Erigaisi is it stops black blocking it up with his H-pawn.
I'm smiling because this was actually my first instinct to put the bishop on the edge of the board. Okay. And yeah, I agree with you. I think it's not a great move because, like you say, the dark square bishop is actually very good for white and bad for black.
Yeah, because that was very stuck.
Yeah.
The dark squared bishop for Magnus.
Yeah, I mean, if you rewind 2 moves here before it got traded off, this bishop was doing what?
Yeah.
Nothing at all. And also, if you look at the pawn structure in the center, white has a bit more space because he's pushed his pawns further forward than black has. Therefore, black should be the one who's cramped. Therefore, black trading off pieces, it feels like it helps him. I mean, that's not to say that Arjun's position is bad, but maybe it's just less good than it was. Maybe the moment has passed to really start attacking. And black's knight's actually pretty good right now.
Yeah, that's a good piece. And white will be struggling with actually his knight. His knight on b1 is back on its starting square. It doesn't have any exciting prospects either.
Yeah.
And is it true that your position is only as good as its worst placed piece?
Nah.
No, it's not really true, is it?
Sometimes it's true. But at least the knight one day can develop itself. It takes a while. Arjun, meanwhile, maybe deciding which pawns to
Why
push.
can't he do it right away? What am I not seeing?
Yeah, so he would love to develop his knight right now, but this would break the connection between white's rook and the pawn in the center. And suddenly a pawn would drop off in the middle. Black's knight, is ready to capture this pawn if the white knight steps in the way. So you just have to keep your rook defending this pawn. That means you can't develop your knight, no safe squares. It's not easy. You would love to kind of push this pawn forward and then push again and try to dislodge black's knight in the center, but right now this square is covered by the black knight. You just can't really push. You don't have any control over the dark squares because you traded off your dark squared bishop.
So it's kind of too late right now. The timing is off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not sure exactly what Magnus does. Maybe Magnus moves his queen and then possibly eventually castles king on this side of the board. But, I mean, the problem for Erigaisi is he wants to win. He has white. And there's no clear plan for him either.
So one point about getting that dark squared bishop of Magnus off, could that have been that his king is on an open dark square, sort of diagonally?
Yeah, I mean, I think one idea is that the black king can never castle anymore on this side of the board. It's not legal because he's moved his rook. At the moment, he's safe-ish diagonally, but...
No, sorry, I meant the white king.
Ah, the white king.
Yeah. So why Arjun wanted to get Magnus's dark squared bishop off the board.
Yeah, quite possibly. Although if white, say, had his dark squared bishop still on this square, then there wouldn't have been any checks on this diagonal anyway. It just feels like he would love to kind of have his bishop back here so he could push some pawns. But yeah, it's maybe I'm being a bit critical of Erigaisi's decision, but...
Well, the bar definitely did go down with that move, and he has been thinking now for 3 minutes. Do you think he's regretting his decision?
Possibly, and struggling to come up with a new plan. I mean, for example, you can push Harry to the H-pawn, but what's it actually do, even if black ignores it? OK, you've got a semi-open file for your rook, but you're not really going anywhere with it. Yeah, it's all about this piece, perhaps.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, like the If I was white here, again, I'd be thinking exactly the way. That's a weird move. I was going to say I'd be thinking the way you're saying, trying to make some break. It's still a very aggressive position in my eyes, as in both kings are quite fragile. So I'd be trying to break through, and I'd be trying to push what is the F pawn in this position. But I don't understand that rook move. You know, any little time loss is not good.
The only explanation I can come up with is that he wants to push this pawn forward now, and then now the square, which was used by the rook, is now opened up for his bishop, but nope.
Now he moves Harry.
Now he moves Harry.
So maybe that rook move was to do with... Nope, I have no explanation. I know, I kind of try to work it backwards. No.
I mean, I don't think the knight jump was doing anything, and here we go. Now Magnus is the first, it looks to me, to open up the opponent's king. It's all about who gets the opponent's king first in these sharp positions, and white is kind of pushing on an area of the board where not much is happening, as David has shown, and Magnus is directly opening up his queen towards white's king, and with two knights and a black rook backing that up, this could get very dangerous for white very quickly.
I think it already is dangerous.
Yeah, you can't waste time in these positions, you know? You can't play little rook moves like that. You know, you can do it when the position is a lot safer, but this is not a safe position.
And now Magnus has the setup with the pawns that you were advocating for Arjun earlier.
Exactly. Always push on the side you're stronger, or push towards your opponent's king. That's the kind of good strategy. And as Simon said, this rook move, it's also on a very loose square. It's not protected. Just indirectly, I'm a bit worried about some tactics on this diagonal later on. Also, it's really fascinating to me that Magnus, OK, the pawn takes pawn was played, but he's just allowing a check with white's bishop. We talked about kings on open diagonals, but I think Magnus's idea was just to ignore it, just move his king. And he doesn't care that it's a check, because his king actually will hide safely later on. But let's catch up with the game. We saw a trade of pawns and another trade of pawns. And, yeah, suddenly already danger against the white king. It's looking dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got two knights with black ready to come in. You've got a rook. OK, well, Arjun is going for this plan of getting his light square bishop out, which does make some sense. If he can come and maybe capture the black knight, he opens things up a little bit. But Magnus is now to strike first. You've also, look at Magnus's pawns on the queen side. He's got two pawns, which are really close to the white king. And you can, you know, it's called the pawn storm. You use these pawns to basically lever open your opponent's defensive position. OK, well, first of all, the white rook at least has something it's doing now. It's stopping checkmate. Otherwise, queen takes pawn would be checkmate. So it has some use.
Yeah.
But I'm really liking black's position, Ivanka.
I have to say, and isn't there a big threat of actually jumping in with the knight to the d4, reinforcing the threat against that poor c2 pawn, but also at the same time, a knight on d4 would attack the f3 pawn. And, yeah.
Maybe I can play a3 when your knight comes there.
I mean, for example, any
I don't get the humour. Explain.
It's really weird chess geeky humour. This is like geeky chess humour. This is like, oh my words, it is actually really geeky.
Yeah, it could happen though. Simon basically, by pushing this pawn forward, has weakened this square, so the black knight can actually deliver checkmate. The king is what we call smothered. It's kind of suffocated behind its own pawns, and you can't take this knight because of a pin on the c-file. There was also a second checkmate idea. Yeah. Queen takes pawn, giving up the queen. And again, the king is trapped because its own pieces are taking away its escape squares. Wow, this is scary stuff. Arjun very quickly played that move.
What happens to the knight?
But wait 1 second. Can you kind of...
Oh, you want to go b3 first?
Can you do weirdy moves like put pawn on b3?
Weirdy moves.
Weirdy moves. I love it. I love the analogy. Weirdy moves. We want weirdy moves. We want weirdy moves. Give us the weirdy. Weirdy? What am I saying? So the knight comes in. That's a lovely idea, though.
It's tempting. You're threatening, again, this knight takes pawn checkmate, the king trapped. But you're also threatening this checkmate, queen takes pawn. And as we just showed in that variation, the king will be trapped again. But I guess the problem with pushing this pawn as black earlier is that this square's now free for white's pieces.
But the knight can jump to this f3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe I'd probably be happy to give up material anyway, but maybe the white queen can block on this square and kill the fun. Queen exchange will make the white king safer.
Oh.
Very scary.
But wait 1 second. This feels like the idea needs like fine-tuning, and we might be
It's very close, isn't it?
It's so close.
It is so close. I agree. And like, you know, here, just that was so close, that position as well. There was some crazy ideas there, but this whole idea that knight coming in is terrifying, isn't it? I mean, but you can also build up a little bit here. I mean, you got a spare move because white's last move doesn't really threaten anything. It doesn't. You know, again, it's a little bit slow. So black has a spare move here.
Wow, Magnus jumps in immediately, so he's threatening checkmate in 2 moves. Queen takes pawn is a massive threat. Needs to be defended against. You need to either push this pawn forward 1 square, which looks really risky, or you need to defend it.
I mean, can you try to counterattack? I mean, if I was white here, I'd love to whip that knight off. I don't know.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, I have to say there's only one way
Only
that
one move.
white
Okay.
can defend, and the position is going to get crazy.
Right.
OK, it's the only way that white can defend is to move the queen to the f2 square. And then the move that we were looking at that I called Weirdy is going to might appear on the board.
Wow. Threatening all sorts of checkmates. And
What a position.
again, pawn takes pawn allows a knight checkmate, smothered mate, and yeah, just to show your idea, Jovanka, queen takes knight. It looks like black's blundered, but at the very least, queen sacrifice again, and a checkmate just with a rook and a pawn. Wow.
Incredible lines there.
Beautiful stuff.
I mean, how does in that last line the computer might say this queen move is okay for white, but how on earth does white defend after that pawn push? And obviously Arjun will see this, but it's not easy if you haven't got the computer running to survive here.
Exactly, and as David highlighted, that is the only move for survival.
Wow.
So white basically just has to ignore that there's a big pawn on the b3 square. That is so difficult.
You have to let your opponent get 1 square away from promoting and making a new queen. I guess the white knight comes back and captures, but it still looks so scary.
So scary.
Would you guys find that f2 sitting there?
David would find it in a heartbeat.
I don't know. I mean, this is the type of move, in this position after the knight came in, it's the type of move I would look at, but I would still be terrified.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be able, I mean, without the evaluation bar in front of me, I would have no idea. I would still be 50% thinking I'm about to get checkmated as white. So,
yeah. But I mean, I suppose, I reckon he will find it because there's maybe no other option.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at giving up the rook, which was a bit desperate, to be honest, because it is a whole exchange. But I was actually getting very, very scared in this position of there's a couple of checkmates on the board threatening. I mean, if you try to move the bishop to defend it, this is the only other move I can see you can think of. This just looks like it's not going to work somehow. B3 comes anyway, and it's the same kind of thing as we saw, but you know, you want your queen more active. So I think he has to find it. Yeah, and yeah, you can just win the exchange. So he has to find this queen move, and he will find it. I'm confident he will find it.
Okay.
Anyone want a little cheeky bet there? Anyone thinks he won't play the queen move?
I believe in Arjun.
I think he'll play it.
Yeah, he plays it.
Yeah.
He plays it, and well, just to celebrate that very calm, composed move, I'm going to share with you a tweet from Jimmy Cecil, who says, well, I'll bring it up, you'll see. It's a meme.
Okay. Oh, I like memes.
Yeah, memes are good.
Yeah.
I love memes. And if you two also want to join in the fun, because it's the final day, well, you can tweet your picture, your tweet to using the hashtag #ChessChamps. And
Ooh, we see Arjun push a pawn forward. Jovanka, you mentioned there was only one move to survive. That was bringing the white knight in.
Oh, yeah, there it goes up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that makes no sense because pawn. I mean, I don't understand that move at all. I'm sorry. I mean, why would you play that move?
because it's very scary to...
It's scary, yeah. I mean, you got it, but I mean, surely now black has a number of, I mean, more than one way to get a major advantage now.
Yeah, his idea, I guess, after pawn takes pawn, hitting the white rook and hitting the white knight, is that the rook will move, capture black's knight, and after black makes a new queen, this is weird. I've never seen a double check with 2 different queens hitting the white king. Luckily, the white king can take one of the queens, and maybe the white king's surviving. Again, another check, but the king moves. It's just about, it's hanging by a thread, but I can't see a knockout blow here for black. So in the current position, I guess the reason he pushed his pawn to this square is sometimes he wants to support his bishop coming in with a counterattack, hitting the black king. But yeah, I mean, firstly, what happens if you just take this pawn? OK, he takes with the queen, Magnus Carlsen.
Very nice.
And after a queen trade, which way is he going to take here? With his rook, with his pawn, or his knight? He takes with a knight.
Wow.
Lining up a discover check. If the black knight jumps out the way, this king is going to be in big trouble. Yeah, he's also won a pawn, Magnus, so he's attacking and he's a pawn up. But at least for Arjun, the queens are off, right? At least now the queens, there won't be as many checkmating threats to deal with.
And I suppose he can move his bishop in with a check now. That could be a bit useful. So, yeah, I mean, I was a bit critical of that move, but to be honest, it's such a hard position for White to play. I mean, we saw there are multiple checkmates. He has thrown the check in that White was facing. And at least now he's got a little bit of initiative, hasn't he? But he's attacking the pawn in the centre. Magnus defends it. Well, there goes the initiative. But
Yeah.
at least he had it for half a move.
He had one threat, Arjun. It's blocked, and Magnus is just a pawn up. Also, this knight looks a bit weird, but it's probably just a strong piece. Yeah, it's hard to bet against the world #1 now. Extra pawn and big advantage.
Yeah. It is looking very good for Magnus, but we do believe in Arjun's defences.
Absolutely, yeah.
He
But
has to be
4 minutes
resourceful.
left on the clock for Arjun Erigaisi. Oh, and here's the meme.
Here it is. Stay calm and play chess.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite appropriate because he found the best defensive move.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jimmy.
I know what this is from. This is like, I think it was the Norwegian grandmaster who's on Twitter quite a lot. He said that Arjun is so calm, he would be calm drawing a nuclear attack. But I was kind of thinking maybe that's not very appropriate this time in current
true.
history. I mean, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Well, the wood, Kyle.
He has survived the storm that Magnus threw at his position, though. And it's just about the damage that's incurred long term.
Yeah.
Okay, retreating with the white knight. I like that move, actually. Just getting ready to jump into the centre later, if possible. Magnus still has a lot of work to do, to be honest.
Yeah, White's at least blockaded up the attack. Yes, he's a pawn down, but that knight is heading to a central square in quite a lot of positions. Maybe you can...
Retrieve that knight as well, the white knight. That black b3 pawn, the black intruder in the white half, that is actually unprotected. White knight could go for that pawn later. If that pawn drops, suddenly all three results once again possible.
Will that be a focus for Magnus in this move then, to find some way to protect his b-pawn?
Yep. I think Magnus will want to improve either his rooks or maybe improve the other black knight. The black knight in the white camp looks good. You don't necessarily want to move it. Commentator's curse, maybe jumping back with that knight is actually one of the best moves, but I would be very tempted to jump in with the other black knight as well. Just bring more pieces into the game.
Yeah, I like the way you think, David. It's very harmonious. And because I'm just looking at the one move threats, I'm like, yeah, let's set up a checkmate. Because after all, the white king is in a cage, especially created by that b3 pawn. So I was like, wow. Can I share it, David?
Yeah, of course.
So this is the idea that I have now. Okay, obviously white as well is playing, but I was thinking just line up the rook, two rooks on the C line, and then...
Say I make a move?
Yeah, and then I double up. And then the whole idea is that if you make a random move, then I wanted to put my knight on the very flashy square, knight to D4.
Wow.
No, that doesn't work. That's a terrible move. I don't know. This is okay.
So let's say last move I'd move my knight.
Yeah. Then it works.
And then rook takes, and you want to come down.
Yeah.
And the idea is basically the white king is weak on the back rank because it's kept caged by this black pawn, cutting off its escape squares. So maybe not in this exact way, but it's definitely going to be a theme for the next few moves. And Magnus, okay, he doesn't double up his rooks on the C file. Instead, he tries to change direction. And he challenges this white rook, which makes sense. It's on an open file. If we see a trade of rooks now, black's rook has a clear path into white's camp, to white's half.
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
This is a much better way to keep the white king caged.
Yeah.
I like it. This is Magnus showing us why he's the world champion.
Is Erigaisi in huge trouble now?
I mean, he's been in trouble for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say this is better than it was maybe a couple of moves ago. That's the only positive thing I can think of.
He can still hold the H file, maybe, just defend his rook.
Yeah. One thing I noticed with this final is that, first of all, Magnus is looking a lot slicker. You know, he's done his hair up. You know, he's gelled it up. He's wearing a very smart jacket.
Yeah.
And he's really, you can see just his body language. He really wants to, I think, not just win this match, but just put some dominance on his opponent. And I think that's like when you have these young, brilliant players come through, like Arjun. And Magnus said he hasn't played him many times in the past. It's like you've got to show how strong you are in your first couple of encounters. You don't want them to start getting their confidence up because they're only going to get better. And I think this is one reason we're seeing Magnus really dominating this match as well. It's not just Arjun's play, it's Magnus really wanting to exert his, like the animal kingdom, isn't it? I am the lion, I am going to...
of the jungle.
That's it. I'm the alpha, Magnus. You young lions coming through. You're not quite there yet. But anyway, some moves in the game here, David. Is there anything... Do you think changed much here?
I mean, it's interesting. I still think Black's doing very well, but at least White is going for that B pawn, and White's knight is ready to capture it in a moment. White's rook needs to move out of an attack first, and it's a bit of a dilemma for Arjun. If he kind of shifts his rook on the first rank, which he does, then it's still a passive piece. If he had brought it up the board, then the first rank would have been vulnerable later when Black's rook comes in. Now I'm expecting Magnus to start potentially going for White's pawns on the right half. But...
Yeah, I thought maybe his plan was to jump in with the knight, the second knight, and target the B2 pawn.
It's a beautiful checkmate for it.
Give me those cheapos.
I love it. I mean, one of my favourite checkmates is a knight checkmate, and
look at this.
This would be
double knight mate.
Oh,
and
so nice.
Checkmate.
Wow.
2 knights alone and a pawn trapping the White king. Whoa.
Yeah.
That is a unique threat. I guess Erigaisi will spot it. After the knight comes in, he'll spot that this is a threat. He'll capture the black pawn. But still, you maintain the threats, right?
Yeah, the rook comes down to the second row, and this was a big idea.
Yeah. I don't really see how to save this pawn, to be honest. You can take away one black knight, but the other knight replaces it. And still, this pawn attacked. I guess Erigaisi's only defence is to try and play for tricks, maybe move his king out the way. If the rook takes the pawn now, then there are ideas such as jumping away with the white knight. And the idea is to deflect this black knight to try and trick it to move because it's forced to defend its rook. Now, some saving chances, perhaps. Still looks pretty bad for White, but yeah, I mean, I guess this is what he's relying on. Magnus just weighing up, maybe looking for other moves, but this one looks good enough for some type of advantage at least.
Yes. And nice time advantage as well for Magnus at the moment with Arjun just in 2 minutes and 2.5 minutes.
Oh.
So, yeah, tough. I mean, if he loses this game, it's going to be so tough because we have to remind everyone that if Magnus wins the first 2 games, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. So he's got White in the next game. If he wins that, it's completely finished.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And if Magnus wins this, yeah, Arjun will have to win 2 games against the world #1. That is a lot to ask.
And it will have to win a game with Black as well, you know, which makes it even harder. And we see, okay, so some...
So the B pawn is off.
B pawn is off, so Arjun can breathe a sigh of relief temporarily, but Black's rook is active, Black's knight's in the game. He's trying a similar trick to something we just showed, I guess. The White king moving out of the way, so instead of jumping in with this knight, he jumped back. There was a capture, the rook came in, attacking this pawn, and White's king moved. So again, rook takes pawn, may be met, for example, with a capture of the knight and then a capture of this pawn, and Black's knight, forced to defend his rook, cannot really move. I mean, at the very least here, Black could just move his rook and probably just win a pawn at some point, but maybe Magnus looking for more in the current position. So this is the position, does he take this pawn, or does he just, for example, go hunting on the other side of the board? You could make an argument for moving the rook and trying to capture this pawn, the base of White's pawn chain. If this pawn drops, then this pawn might drop, then this pawn might drop, mopping up business.
Start from the back, that's what you said yesterday when taking pawns off.
Definitely. This one is the weakest one, so maybe start with that. That's the move I actually expect from Magnus right now. The other one just requires a bit of calculation and maybe it's good enough, but Magnus with 5 minutes. Okay, wow. Okay, this one I definitely didn't expect.
Was that on your radar, Simon?
You know what? I was thinking I want to play G5 and I want to get my king in behind it. So I was actually like, I thought it was too stupid to recommend. So I thought, I can't say that. I'll get laughed at, you know. But it's not so stupid to play that kind of idea. Similar to what you mentioned there, David, of coming around towards those pawns, and it's the only piece which is not doing anything. and what is your opponent playing next? And this is the important thing that makes these kind of moves possible, asking yourself, what is my opponent's next move? There's nothing that obvious that white can do at the moment.
No.
But it does seem slow. So, as well.
I mean, it's just, I think it's the surprise. The more we look at it, the more it looks great for black still, right? Still this pawn eternally weak, this pawn very, very weak. And black's pawn's all defended. Yeah, just looks very dominant.
Yeah, he's priming himself for maybe a rook and pawn endgame.
Oh.
And, OK, Erigaisi slides the rook 1 square. And can I share with you a question that we have from Mohammed Farah, who asks us, why are we all wearing black? Or is this just a coincidence? David is wearing dark navy, but Simon and me, we're in black.
All black.
I only wear black, is basically my answer. I don't own any other clothes that are not black.
And in black.
I'm just, I just love my black, you know, so my simple answer.
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah, so...
Now I had a choice today. I had a choice between like a burgundy or black, and I was like, go for black. And what I found also quite amusing was that Arjun is wearing white and Magnus is wearing black.
Ah,
yeah.
That was fun in Dubai World Championship match. Magnus would always wear the same color suit, I think it was, as the pieces he was playing with. So black suit and like a light beige one when he had the white pieces.
Yeah. Superstition, maybe.
Yeah, chess humor, even.
Yeah, and Magnus, meanwhile, has gone 1 pawn up. It didn't last for long. Erigaisi winning a pawn himself. And now I'm expecting one of the black knights to go and capture white's A pawn. You don't want to leave white's A pawn to survive, because it is a passed pawn. Go and take that one away. Clear pawn up.
Which knight would you capture that pawn with? Because I was going to suggest that I would take with the one on the second row, because then the 2 knights are not tied in some awkward construction, and Erigaisi moves up the rook 2 squares.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the threat is. Maybe the white rook wants to come across the board and start attacking those black knights, but Magnus does have a move or two before any threats happen to just re-coordinate his pieces. He doesn't look too happy, the world number 1. A bit frustrated, now changing position. It's funny, Simon, you mentioned kind of the looking slick, but when I studied medieval literature at university, there's common themes of warriors in battle and how before a big battle they groom, like there's this grooming ritual where they get their beards ready, they kind of they just make sure that they look good, they feel smart, they feel ready, and I think it's the same with chess. If you look professional, feel professional, then you play a lot better.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Wasn't the first chess piece, the Isla that was found, the oldest chess piece they found, the Isla Lewis one?
Yeah.
It has the berserker chewing on the shield, right? So that's indicating that they used to take some substances before going into battle. Right? I think so. You know,
other things. Yeah.
Do you know,
yeah. So
I learned a very interesting fact about battles when you have these kind of armed combats. I learned that the people who died were actually more often than not by accident. People went out there and they got guns or whatever and they just shot them up in the air, and they're just like, they weren't aiming them at people. So like people didn't want to kill each other in the battles. And it was all just either done by accident, and it was all just like mayhem and confusion. But yeah, because I always thought it was like your Lord of the Rings type, you know, with Aragorn there killing orcs left, right and centre. No, it wasn't quite like that. There was not that much skill involved.
Maybe that's why they had to groom. They don't want their long hair to be caught on any weapons by accident. But I guess you also want to look intimidating to the enemy, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe that's part of the reason Magnus... I've seen it happen in big tournaments as well. He wants to look professional, and then his opponents are like, oh, he's come ready for business.
But you do this, David, as well. I've noticed, and a lot of top players, they say that they wear suit to play a game of chess because you've got to feel the part, and you want to feel good when you go into battle, and chess is a battle after all. OK, so we have some little tactics here. We can see White's idea with the rook was to try and activate it, but Magnus has now done a counter-attack with his rook, which seems like quite a clever idea, actually. And, well, black is a pawn up here, and it's just a matter of whether, I guess, he can convert this extra pawn. Do you think it's enough?
Feels like it should be.
It's Magnus.
Yeah.
It is, indeed.
Also, White's pawns are pretty weak. The black knights will start jumping in. And I guess you can start now. White's rook is attacking one of the black knights. Why not jump into the centre of the board? Magnus, he looks like he's a bit excited. He feels like he's seen a good move and he's going to play it. I don't really see any other move.
It seems very natural to use that knight to attack the rook. I mean, it's a lovely, lovely square for the black knight. You've also got central. I mean, this is
Okay,
yeah. There we go.
is it?
I mean, why not just bring the knight into a beautiful square? And I guess if you can just get the other knight to a decent square. Okay, he's not even bothering. He's just trying to win a second pawn, which is now undefendable. And this is really bad actually for white. The problem is white is struggling to get any counterplay whatsoever, and the bishop is a terrible piece in such a structure because all the pawns are on one side of the board. I mean, it's a close range battle, and bishops don't really work very well in these situations. So he's trying to bring his rook now, at least to try to get that rook active, which seems like the best bet. But Magnus on the offensive as well with his pieces here.
Yeah, and there's like two knights that are sniffing around the white king as well. And then you have the rook on the optimal second row. It doesn't even feel that white can have the luxury of going on the offensive and trying to stir up some counterplay.
I mean, I think he's trying the right thing. He is trying to get counterplay in a desperate situation. Try to throw your pieces towards your opponent's king, but there's not any threats yet, and it is 3 black pieces near the white king, right? Yeah. Can black get the first mating net around on the board?
Exactly. I mean,
It's so close.
If you just move one knight in, the king is trapped. It literally has no moves. You just need to deliver one check, and it'll be game over. Meanwhile, if white gives a check, it's just one check, right? The king can move. Yeah. I don't see what Erigaisi is trying to do, to be honest.
Is he trying to bring his knight? Well, I mean, even that doesn't work, but because you have knights covering. But I like your knight move, David, because you could be trying to use that knight to check and then bring the other one in.
Yeah.
Looks very close to checkmate. Might not quite be.
I think it. Well, if the white rook just leaves that line, say for instance, it gives it. Yeah, who knows, somewhere, and then the other knight from e4 can take a step back, and then attack the bishop, threaten.
Very nice.
Again, double knight, checkmate. The king trapped.
Looking at this position, I think one thing's becoming clear. What should Arjun do?
Yeah.
Resign. Just resign. Get the next game going.
Yeah.
It's not
that would
good.
be a hammer blow to his chances, losing with white. And again, Magnus, he plays these openings and they have poor reputations, right? Or dodgy reputations, and he just makes them look like part of a great master plan. It feels like Magnus has had a game plan all along, just kind of survive on one side of the board, then start going for the opponent's king. It's just kind of, it just has a start, a middle and an end, all of his games like this. And
this is another beautiful move, isn't it? Because he's actually just, that bishop, which we've mentioned, the white bishop, is a really bad piece. OK, got to check in. Yeah, well done. Well done, sir. Yeah, you know, and, well, he's giving up the bishop now. I mean, I don't think there's a checkmate threat here. I mean, there's not. I mean...
But it's even tempting just to ignore that bishop.
And checkmate instead.
And go for checkmate. After all, it ends the game.
It does.
There's one trap. If you move black's knight from the centre of the board, I think that would backfire seriously. I think white might even be winning, or at least white would have... or actually, I was about to say white has very, very good chances of a counter-attack, but the more I look at it, actually, maybe not. So, he just gets greedy. Why not take a bishop?
Yeah, he puts it in the bank and rotates pawn, and the king takes a step backwards.
This seems to be a trend of Magnus. He always takes the pieces he can take.
Yeah, why not? Just put it in the bank and save it for later. And
surprised he didn't come forwards there. But, I mean, this also seems quite simple. And
good enough.
I mean, if white can't do anything in the rook and knight, then black is just going to win now. I mean, so white's got to try to use the rook and the knight to coordinate, but you can't actually get anything going with those two pieces here. The black king can always step forwards if it's checked, and there's nothing here at all. And
I have a couple of checks, but that's it. No checkmate.
And,
only 2 attacking pieces.
I have a feeling. Well, no, not I have a feeling. Black is actually threatening to give a deadly checkmating threat.
Getting very close, isn't it, Ivanka? I mean, like, he's bringing that knight in.
It's coming.
And
I think it's time to, you know what?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
He resigns. Arjun Erigaisi, super tough start to the final day. A loss means he now has to win 2 games to have any hopes of winning. What a great game by Magnus Carlsen. So here is today's Lisoveta Learning Point.